Frothies. Round one of the preseason championships, whatever they call it these days, is in the books. Barney and Daggy are with you to talk about it all and what it means for, well, if it means anything, or if what it means for the season ahead. As I get you to pop your mic up a tiny bit, and I'll take mine away a bit. But just what's going on, Barney? How do you enjoy footy? It was all right, I suppose.
Yeah, it was good to see some footy back. Saw a lot of young kids with a lot of inconsequential footy, as you mentioned. I don't think a lot of that's going to make its way into the NRL until probably halfway through the season, when you will see a few of these younger fellas.
10, it's got to be now, doesn't it?
Popping in on the development contracts and that kind of stuff. But yeah, there was still a few quite good performances, I thought, and a couple that leave you sort of scratching your head of what teams have been doing during the off season. But
I think it confirms some fears and maybe allayed some, but we'll get through that. We'll touch on a couple of bits of news. The NRLW released today that it has an in-principle agreement with the for a CBA, which will be $900,000 salary cap from this year, with the idea of it being a 20-week period, 9 regular season rounds, semi-finals, grand final, 7-week pre-season, 2-week leave, and that will grow to 23 weeks by 2025. That'll escalate towards $1.5 million cap in 2027. I guess it's good that that's locked in. More than happy for him and everything. I still have the same concerns I've had, which no one seems to have addressed anywhere, is where are they going to play all these games and how and when.
When they're going to be televised.
And if they're going to be televised, which I sure assume for 1.5 across. And I think I don't have it in a press release, but I believe it is with a view to filling more teams, scaling up the comp to
10, I think it was.
Well, I think it's 10 this year, and then it would move towards 14 or something. Yeah. People are correcting us, but the issue I have is, like I said, how much content is too much content when you have now 8 games every week, heading towards 15 games every week. Well, who's going to watch it? I'm sure someone will.
There'll be somebody watching it, but what kind of quality coverage are you going to get as well? Commentator-wise, camera angles, all that kind of thing. You're going to go back to the one camera floating down the side of the field.
Well, and that's you watch the Fox coverage of the Marsh Cup. It's like 2-camera coverage, which is fine because cricket you can get away with it, but you don't want it to seem like amateur hour, because the minute you do, then they're accused of that. So
absolutely, they tucked away quite a few good things, obviously, which were needed. In the way insurance is going to be covered for the female game, maternity leave, and those kind of things. But the thing that sort of got me scratching my head, to be honest, is if you've gone from a 9-week season up to 20 weeks. And the salary cap's still at $900K. That's sort of a bit of a question mark for me. Realistically, if you're pushing it out to close to what you're getting out of an NRL comp, I know you're not getting the coverage and the viewership, but surely it should be somewhere around the $2 or $3 million mark. And they're still only looking at $1.5 million 4 or 5 years down the track from now. I think I think there's more scope there to push that up to somewhere near $3 million by the time 5 years comes around.
Oh, I'm sure if it explodes, I think, like any in-principle agreement, they'll sign off on this year and they'll say, let's get it all happening and see what happens. When I turn around and 12,000 people watch it and they go, well, no advertiser wants to help us out here, how far can we go?
Yeah, it's more for me for the bottom 10 players of every team. They're going to be running around on 30K a year, and it's going to cost them,
the goal, I think, was 50 by 2027.
Yeah, so. But even at 50K a year, and you're spending 3/4 of your year just to get that 50 grand, and then possibility of injury, which is very high in rugby league compared to most professions out there. So yeah, but
I guess the answer is a pineapple. Still, we'll wait and see.
Absolutely.
And I don't want us to exactly, and I agree with you. I don't want it to seem like we're negative, because we're far from negative. I think I wish all the best for the comp, but I'd like to see it actually put down what it actually means across week in, week out, and what it means for them and everything else. As you say, you're now committing 20 weeks of 23, so 6 months of your...
And there'd be 2 or 3 months, you've got to train for 2 or 3 months before you're even allowed to play.
Yeah.
And
well, 7, that's
other
right,
commitments
7 weeks,
outside of that kind of thing with, Dally M awards and whatever else may happen, club commitments that they expect you to go to outside of your normal season commitments. So, yeah, I think it's a lot to ask for someone to turn up for 40 grand a year to sort of, 40, 50 grand a year to do that.
It's almost a case of actually they're probably better off trying to shop it to like ESPN or somewhere in Australia. Like get it right away from the Fox coverage and say, well, do you want this sort of if Channel 7 wants it or 7-2 or 9, whatever,
one of the
go and find a completely independent broadcast partner. But, maybe Channel 9 would be happy to show it on the Super Saturday when there's got nothing else to show on at 4 o'clock on a Saturday hour instead of, I don't know, reruns of iFish or something.
You'll find that, the middle of the day on a Wednesday instead of playing the grand final from 1974, they'd be playing the women's game. But
which I suggested they should, and I don't have a problem with. Just means Vossi misses out on a game of golf once a week, but that's fine. But I hope the game continues to grow, and hopefully the best is still ahead for that.
That's a very good framework that they have put in place. But I think there's a few edges that need tweaking, and obviously that comes down to what happens over the next 12 months, 24 months. And I guess we'll keep going through some news. I don't know what else we can really add to that. Craig Fitzgibbon, you've wrapped him up for 5 years, Barn. Apparently.
Happy with that?
Well, it's a 5-year contract, they say. It was realistically only a 4-year extension because he was signed for this year anyway. But what can you say? He's come in, done very good things. Long-term contracts probably haven't been the flavour of the month for a very long time. You go back to, Brent Sherwin in the late 90s, early 2000s. Got the 5-year contract and played 6 months of good footy in 5 years. But just seems like a bit of a different mould to that. He seems like a very determined person and a very organised individual. So, as a Sharks fan, I'm quite happy at the moment. We'll see how we're going
and
2 or 3 years down the track.
I believe they're trying to get Nico for the same period. So
heard this morning.
In a world where there's not many coaches and halfbacks, it's good that the club can potentially do that.
Heard this morning, apparently they want him a lifetime contract, basically want him at the club even once he's finished playing football. It helps that he's probably a mature age player, so he's realistically probably got 6 or 7 years left in his playing. I dare say they'll offer him a 5-year contract and then something after that. But if they can keep him there, the signs have all been good ever since he's taken over the role at 7. So even in the All-Stars game, he had a starring hand in that one. So obviously, if you can keep him fit, keep him on the field. Can't see too many issues with it.
And the other big signing news is Nanai is staying at Townsville till 2027. So that's good for them.
That's a fantastic signing for the Cowboys.
They've
definitely one of the best emerging back rowers going around at the moment. Footwork skill, big, strong fella. So, I dare say he'll probably end up taking Tamalolo's role once he leaves as the 13 that plays both sides of the field. But, very destructive runner, and I think that's a fantastic signing for the Cowboys.
Beautiful. We've got, just quickly, the only suspension news is the young fella from South, Tahawe, 2 weeks for his throw or his dangerous tackle.
Yeah, right.
And injury news is bigger. We've got Reece Walsh potentially in doubt for round 1, maybe longer.
4
with
weeks.
With a fractured eye socket, so touch and go there for him, and he looked fantastic, which we'll get to later. Xavier Savage. Now, the Canberra fans are very upset with us. They cannot envisage that. I've heard about it. Cannot envisage that Canberra will not make the top 4, so a blow for them. 6 weeks with a broken jaw, at least. I assume Rapana's name there this week. I assume it'll probably be...
I dare say that'll be the way it stays.
Ricky tends to be safety first. He's not going to go and find someone else to go in there.
From what I've seen, they don't have another specialist fullback in their ranks at all. So it is a bit of a concern. Rapana will do a job. He's generally pretty good in positioning, like defensive positioning with the kicks, and he pops up at the right time. But, Canberra got a few more worries than that, which I'll get to, I think, out of the trial. But
we'll talk about the rest of the social media feed. And it's been absolutely fantastic. Thanks to everyone, especially on YouTube, who's jumped on and commented on all our previews, and the guys that have stuck around. Queenslander's a fan. He's written in plenty of times, and no doubt he'll be watching this on the tube. But you can find us on Spotify, of course, and here are good podcasts are found if you haven't already. And we'll address some of those comments as we get on. And lastly, Melbourne, they've lost Olam to a broken arm. On top of that, confirmed Pappy, which we sort of suspected won't be playing at least for the first 6 to 8 weeks. I think that's a big issue.
We said it when it happened. To have his knee destroyed the way it was, it's not just about putting the bones back together. It's about strengthening all the muscles, getting the ligaments tightened back up to where they need to be to hold it all into place. and then you got to learn how to fucking walk and run again.
Yeah.
So I think obviously he's done as much physical preparation as he can now, but to get back to where he was flying in the middle of last year I can't see it happening this year, to be honest. And if it is, it'll be back end of this season.
And I can see even when he is back, like they did last year, barely able to start him for a month off the bench or use him as a 14. I would assume he's not going to rush him straight in. But
no, you wouldn't think so. He generally doesn't with anybody. So realistically, you can rule him out of your Supercoach until at least halfway through the season, I would
probably
imagine.
untenable, isn't he? Unless he is a freak at the back end and you can
No,
get him for
he's
700.
someone that hopefully he plays 4 weeks of footy and going okay and drops a bit of cash and you can pick him up round 16 or something. But yeah, it's
Any other headlines or takeaways from the weekend?
no, not
Before we
realistically.
go game by game?
Yeah, just on your social media comment, there will be no apologies.
And
it's all
comments are
opinion.
welcome. So
Yeah, we
send
love
yours
it.
in. It's
Enjoy
brilliant.
it. Yeah,
And
rip
it's
into us.
actually,
Tell us what we stuffed up and
There's
why
been
we're
a few
wrong.
that have made us think, okay,
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
he's probably right. And also he's an arse clown. But that's
I'm
fine.
More than happy to be wrong, and but we do have opinions. We spend a lot of time formulating those opinions. It's not just something that we say that comes to the top of our head. We spend a lot of time away from recording as well as the time we spend recording, coming up with those opinions. And realistically, I don't like putting down majority of teams, probably any teams, to be honest.
No.
But it is an opinion, and if I get it wrong, I'm more than happy for those teams to be much better than I thought they were going to be at the back end of the year. So
Absolutely. Agree with that. But yeah, jump on our YouTube, Footy and Frothy's YouTube as well. You'll find this stuff. I'm going to start putting up. This one will be up in full, and depending on length, we'll probably put up review shows in some pieces each week.
Yep.
But more and more will feed into that as well. Check out, let's get all our plugs out of the way. PCTC Tipping Comp is now live. Go to Facebook or Instagram. Search for PCTC Sports Tipping. You'll find them on there, and Gaz and the team that run that do a fantastic job. You can get a buy-in comp there, $50, or you can play for free and take us on and just prove how wrong we are. But awesomely run comp. I do the league and every racing comp with them.
Absolutely.
We've been involved for nearly 10 years now. So
do a lot of the
big
sports and the racing leagues. We've been over 10 years. Never been any issues with
transparency or
nothing.
The word.
No, transparency is a good one.
I'm
Yeah,
trying to get the word,
payments, anything like that. You'll never find a bad word said about the people that run this competition.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, I would not say a bad word. Rugby League merch, Scott and the team there do a great job. And go and buy some of our hats and shirts and everything going on there. They do a good job. They're covering off a lot of other podcasts as well as some other AI art he's got up there, and plenty going on. So rugbyleaguemerch.com, the One More Club shirt, the famous one, or the very sexy Footy and Frothy's hats, who I believe he has the yellow hat back in stock. Yellow rim
nice.
hat.
I might have to get hold of that one. Steins, schooner
Stein,
glasses.
everything going on there. So check all that out, and that gets everything out of the way nice and early. As generally as fans of the show now, we're going 4 years, we'll go deep diving into every single game and pick it apart and throw out some stats and just have some random argument halfway through the show with Ollie and I, but he's not here. So what we can do is we'll run through similarly each trial without going too far in.
It won't be the stats and the in-depth conversation that you'll get week in and week out. But
we might just say touch on what we thought in our preview.
Absolutely.
And how I thought it may have shaped our thoughts. And I dare say this week we'll have a much stronger shaping of said thoughts.
Yeah,
and what we take out of them, and if it's panic stations yet. Spoilers, I don't think it is, but but we'll get through it. When we kicked off for Thursday night, with all my excitement, lobbing up here to the Grey Gums Hotel to watch the new look Tigers in action, and it was 48-12. Barn, it was good signs for the Warriors, and good signs. And I've since had actually some smart people tell me that Andrew Webster's a very, very good operator and underrated.
Yes, absolutely.
And he'll get something out of these teams, but a great shining for some of these. We'll start with the Warriors. I think the two halves looked absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely they did. Metcalf provided the running game. Terry Martin provided the kicking game and a little bit of structure in behind a pretty good forward pack that sort of rolled over the top of a very young and inexperienced forward pack from the Tigers. What could you say about the thing that sort of worries me is that Metcalf now, he either becomes a 14 or he's sort of there as a backup half by the looks of it with the way that they're shaping up.
I was disappointed to not see him in the 17 this week.
Yeah, he was he set the world on fire. They spent 12 months trying to get him from the Sharks for obviously good reasons. He has a fantastic running game and turned some of these Tigers inside out. But I would imagine Martin's going to get the start before he will. So it'd be interesting to see where he pops up during the season. But
well, we said it early, but a big year for Sean Johnson, because if he's on one leg and not necessarily performing, and Tamari actually is going to take a lot of pressure off him, because our biggest concern when we sat down the other week was the 1 point of attack and what else was offered, and Metcalf straight away gives you 2. Yep. And Tamari probably gives you 3. He looked about, I think, and the good thing is for them, Tamari looked at home at 7. He could walk into that role next year when Johnson's gone. And
you got Volkman there as well,
and Volkman's
in
up
the
their
wings.
sleeve.
Yeah.
Maybe flattered, but Metcalf's turn of speed, you can't coach speed, to use the cliche. And his turn of foot was absolutely deadly at times.
Great
but
step
even just,
as well.
but he knows when to use it. He looks very intelligent, whether that's part of his 7s or whatever it might be. But he looked fantastic. Could easily play fullback, I think.
Yep.
But I would almost, if they're looking, the tricky thing is if they're looking for a big body outside back row, he doesn't necessarily fit there. But he's not small by any means.
He's not.
But he could play centre. He just might be smaller, and it could potentially excite to get him one-on-one with your Talakais of the world and stand them up and off you go. But to me, he needs to be in that 17, at least if he's not 14, somewhere in the 13. Anything to add?
It's hard with, as we said, with the options that they do have. I'd imagine they're going to go with the tried and true to begin with.
And I think they're not going to just sign Chance, tell him he's fullback, and then say, by the way, Chance, we lied. You can go back to centre. But that could be on the cards.
6 weeks down the track or something. Yeah, absolutely. There was the thing that sort of worried me was the defensive structure out of the Tigers. While they did play with a bit more movement and with a bit more ball movement, which was exciting at different times, they still got rolled through the back of the ruck, where the Warriors played that 45-degree angle back in behind the markers, and time again they got rolled through the middle of the field, and the Warriors just seemed to march through them for large periods of the game, which I know the kids, but that's what you build your foundations of your defence on, and that's what you're training everybody in your entire club. And yeah, it's a little bit of a worry. It helps that basically the whole team changes this week.
Yeah,
but
I will worry
judgment
when that happens again this week.
Yeah, reserve judgment until probably 3 weeks down the track, realistically, maybe round 2 or something like that. But yeah, it was.
I was shocked initially how easily they started rolling up the field. I think the second stint they all got better for the run, the Tigers kids, because they did slow sort of back end of the first half through the second half. Realistically, if I was to look back at it, I would say, I assume. Anything else you want to touch on from the? Obviously, Marcelo could have scored 7 tries probably if he held the ball and
absolutely
looked dangerous, but big, strong, and he's someone you've sort of spruiked in the past a little bit.
Yep. Afoa I thought was decent. He looks like he may end up taking that starting front rower's role. I'd really like to see him Tohu to be pushed back to 13, to be honest, and just let the front rowers be front rowers, because Tohu's not a front rower; he's a back rower or a lock. But at the moment, they're going to play him at front row, and we'll see what actually happens there. But and Tom Ale, who we mentioned in the preview show, looks like someone who will probably take that bench front rower role as well. So I thought the Warriors
they're pretty good stocks when you throw Fanua Blake, Tohu, and there's someone else obvious I'm missing.
You got Curran, Jazz Tavanga,
and Jazz back in, and these blokes off the bench can do a
nice enough job. You got Mitch Barnett there now as well.
And Barnett,
So I think they will be competitive for large parts of the year, at least in the forwards. We'll see how they get directed around the field. We know what Johnson does, but he doesn't have the running game anymore, so it'll probably be on Martin for the start of the year, maybe Metcalf if he does come in, but their biggest issue for the Warriors has always been their outside backs and their defensive issues that they have out there, and we'll see how they go up against some of the better attacking teams, holding them out in the centres and the wings. But
for the Tigers, I thought the three sort of starting first graders all were very good. Stefano looked as good as he'd looked in 12 months, especially his second stint. He was fantastic and probably becomes, if it wasn't obvious before, someone that you want to get in Supercoach quite early, around the 370 mark. I think he's going to at least be a $500,000 prop quite quickly. I thought Simpkin was very good. Ran the ball a lot more than he did under Madge.
Probably played a better game than he did at any point last year.
Yeah. And his running, I think his running game was what brought him to the club from all reports when he was the Queensland 18s hooker. And he was very much just a robot last year, and being able to be a bit more free in his running, I thought looked good at times. Seyfarth didn't let anyone down. What you see is what you got. And Pole was very, very green early, but I think his second stint when he just went looking for work was fantastic. There's one set in that back end. I think he had 4 hit-ups in a set.
Yeah, the back end of that
held up
second
3 times.
was fantastic.
But he was outstanding. Away from them, the defensive structure's interesting. The winger out there and Tommy Talau. Tommy looked like someone that hadn't played in 12 months, and that whole right side defence. And obviously now it's a target, so you know it's going to be worked on at training. You know they're going to build parachute bodies in. I don't quite know where you go. I am also the opinion I'm trying to be giving Tommy a month in first grade. Not first grade, reserve grade, to get some miles back in his legs.
Charlie Staines again proved that he's definitely not a fullback.
Yeah, you're penning him? Yeah.
I'd be playing Laurie there every day of the week before I'd be playing
even
Staines at fullback. His defensive positioning's not great to begin with. When you see the way he gets obviously bumped off for the first try off him, just ran straight over the top of him. And he was never going to make that tackle around the shoulders, so he would have best, he's probably not going to stop him from scoring a try, but it would have looked a lot better to hit him around the hips and try and actually bring him to the ground than just get thrown away.
In all fairness, I don't know if Laurie stops him either, but I know what you're saying, 100%.
The defensive positioning, though, and Laurie's just got that acceleration where the grubber in goal, he's got a lot more chance of getting out or causing problems for the defence than Charlie Staines. He's very upright. He's someone you stick on a wing and hopefully he jumps over the top of someone or finishes a nice backline movement every now and then. But yeah, he's definitely not the hype that he came through when he scored 6 tries against the Sharks in his first game. I can definitely tell you that. Justin Matamua, who played 13 for you guys, I thought played quite well, had a lot of involvements, did a lot of the dirty work that a few of the other young fellas weren't getting involved in. And as a 20, 21-year-old, I thought he was quite good. Someone that may end up in the side at some point, but I think you've covered most of them. As you said, there was realistically probably only 3 blokes that are going to be playing first grade this year in that team. So
I was a bit disappointed in Nagadakara. We were
actually,
I've been very bullish on him for a long time.
We did speak about that.
I think he's another one. He can benefit 6 weeks in Reggie's. Will do them a lot of good. Getting he's just service and timing was way off. So he'll get better because he's a good player and we've seen it. But back to New South Wales Cup will help. Look, what do I take away? I'm slightly raising Warriors stock, I would suggest. I think Webster seems to be doing a good job. I think there is a little bit more to their attack than we maybe initially gave them credit for.
Absolutely.
Defence will be the key, and defence from the 45 to 70 minute will be the key for them. We'll see that in action this weekend going forward. And Tigers, I took take what you get. I just treated it as the kids playing, and we move on
and play next week. See how you go.
Brandon Wakeham, he certainly signed.
He has a flash here and there, but I don't think you can expect more than probably 2 or 3 decent
involvements. In fact, I think he probably
had
2 training sessions with him by the time before this game. But I think it was a 40-20. The rest was his end of tackle options were very average, and I don't think the rest of his general play was that great. But he'll be better for the runs. So that's all we can say.
Absolutely.
Let's get to Friday night though. 28-16. The Sharks ran over the Knights. Probably flattering to the Knights. And a lot of these, as it happens in trials, these scores, a lot of these points happen in the back end of the game where they take everyone off and put some kids on and off they go. But your initial thoughts on the Sharks' performance here?
Yeah, well, there was a couple of probably 10-minute periods in both halves where they just couldn't hold on to the ball, and there was error after error, which is what you expect when you get a whole heap of kids and throw them together in a game of footy. Sharks were slightly better than I thought they would be, to be honest. I thought their attacking game was, you can see even without the guys in there that do it week in and week out, it's definitely a structure that's been trained through the entire club, and they all slipped into that
To your
same
point
style
earlier,
of play where
and as we get to Penrith, you'll talk
they
about it
try to
again,
get
yeah.
on the outside of the just on the edges of the ruck, and then they run their plays for their centres and wingers, or they angle back in and go with the hard stuff through the middle of the footy. Rudolph probably disappointed a little bit, I thought, considering he was probably one of the standout, and Uele as well, actually, considering that they've both now stamped themselves as first graders and probably should be moving on to that next level. They should have probably blown this team
the
apart.
opposition that were on their own team.
The Saifidi boys were okay.
No, but given the alternative, the Sharks front row.
Oh, yeah, Tom Hazelton was fantastic. His blokes played 1 or 2 first-grade games last year, and I thought he was probably close to the Sharks' best on the field as a
He
big
was the one you
front rower.
were spruiking up started last year? Was it him?
Yeah, when they first found him at the start of last year, yeah. And at one we let go, went and played an absolute ball terror for the Bulldogs, but we'll get to that when we get to him. Obviously, the fullback played a fantastic game for the Sharks. He was probably man of the match and had some very good attacking plays where he sort of kicked for himself, or he just carved the defence apart with some nice footwork. There wasn't too many massive standouts. I thought Hiroti did well. Iro would look sharp every time he got involved out in the centres. And I think Hiroti played a little bit of time at fullback there as well when Atkinson came off. It is hard when guys are only playing sort of 20 minutes of footy to see exactly what they do, which is one of my big takeaways from the All-Stars game, actually. I think the Maori team probably cost themselves a win by doing that, but we'll get to that, obviously, when we get to that as well. Jack Williams looked pretty good coming back playing 30 minutes, considering he spent most of last year off the field. But I was really surprised. I thought Newcastle would actually win this game and probably not win it well, but be comfortable for the majority of it, just because the Sharks realistically had very little first-grade experience in this team.
Kafusi's on time on the field looked pretty good too.
Yeah, didn't have a lot of involvements. But when he was involved, he was really good. He had a nice offload here or there. Played, 28 minutes, but didn't do anything that means that he wouldn't be playing again next week. I imagine he'll be the first bench rotation, and Tom Hazelton will be the second. But
I think they've got to play Hazelton. He'd be fantastic coming on around the 20th minute there, and I suppose who comes out though.
You got Uele, Hunt, probably. Yeah, I don't know.
Big year for Toby Rudolph.
Yeah.
Now, Newcastle did roll out, let's say 75% of their team.
A lot of their forward pack, yeah.
What we're going to get, and what did we get?
I thought the Saifidi boys were good, but only really for that 10 or 15 minute period. I think they only both played about 20 or 30 minutes, but there was 5 or 10 minutes where they weren't really involved either. So it's going to be interesting seeing them step up, because they're going to both have to play an hour, I would imagine, every week, because there's not a lot of depth when you get to this forward pack for the Knights now.
If you got no Barnett, Fitzgibbon's going to be probably trying to play big minutes, which doesn't really suit him.
Probably going to play 80, yeah.
Hetherington, they'll probably try and keep 30 to 40. He wasn't even named this week, but I think he's got a bit of a strain or something.
Yeah.
And Kurt Mann's named at lock again this week. A little bit surprising.
You can tell, obviously, they don't have a lot of backup half options.
No.
Hastings wasn't really involved a lot. But that came down. They didn't have a lot of ball at different times of the game. Gamble scored a try, and I think that was about his only involvement for the game in his 20-odd minutes that he played. It's hard when they change it up as much as they do. But Brayley was probably disappointing out of hooker. I thought that he could have and should have made a bit more of an impact. The one that did stand out for me was Jack Johns. We haven't seen a lot of
Johns' boys were good this week.
They were very good. But Jack Johns, mid-20s now, hasn't had a lot of opportunity in first grade. But for me, he was their best player on the field, closely followed by probably Lachlan Fitzgibbon. But I thought Jack Johns did some really, really nice stuff, ran some really good lines, pretty good in defence, and had an offload or two there that caused a few problems for the Sharks. But
Hodgson, very, very much rocks and diamonds throughout the game. His positioning defensively will get better, let's say.
he was in the
but he was in
position
attacking wise, he wasn't in a bad. He didn't find some bad lines, and
his hands, let him down.
Yeah,
big time. He seemed to catch one and drop two, and then catch two and drop one. And
actually, no, you're right. In fairness, his positioning was actually.
He was in the right spot.
Yeah,
he just kept
couldn't
dropping
catch
the
it.
thing.
Now I think of it. Oh well, yeah, I was thinking more of the ones where it just dipped on him or bobbed on him, but you can't really blame it on where he was, can you?
And, the back line didn't like Mapalangi, who I had big raps on earlier in the year. He had very little involvement at all. Heimer Hunt, they just did not use their backs whatsoever. When they did have time with the ball, it was through the middle and they'd drop it and turn it over, or it'd be sort of four hit ups and a kick, and it was very uninspiring from creative play. Are
they just going to rely on Ponga to pull something out of his ass to be anywhere? So. And is Lockie Miller capable of being
a lot of it
the extra ass pull they need, or is he?
You saw a lot of it last year when he was playing. It was basically pass it to Ponga. Hopefully he gets on the outer side of someone and then puts somebody away, or it was a kick for the two big towers on the edges with Dominic Young and Edric Lee to jump over somebody and score. I think you are going to see a lot of that, to be honest. How they use Lockie Miller is going to be interesting, because he's another one that seems to like to sort of play that 5'8" role where he runs around people, gets on their outside, and then uses his footwork. He's going to have to play a lot more direct back on the inside of the halves and use his footwork through the middle of the field, or chime in on that sweep run on the outside. So I can see it being a benefit when they go to the left, because that's the way Ponga likes to go, playing that sweep. But how he's going to go navigating back through the middle of the field with inside balls and things like that is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if because we know Jackson Hastings now. We've sort of seen him here for a year. I feel like he's going to be a similar player to what he was the front half of the Tigers, which is good. A great player, great effort player. But he's not Brad Fittler. He's not going to right step score. He's not going to. He's going to have very pinpoint kicks to those wings.
He's going to kick well.
He's going to make they've lost Hedrick, but he's going to make Dom Young look good.
Might get a late offload or a short ball.
Yeah,
put
and he can
into
stand and attack. I think he's going to almost be taking the line on late in the set and trying to pop that. I am happy to ultimately say, well, what we said about Newcastle a few weeks back is probably pretty close to mark. And a tick for the Sharks. They'll get better this week. They'll
obviously,
be fine.
As we said, it's a trial, so until you get your full 17 on the field, it's still very up in the air on how they're going to go. But yeah, I was quite surprised with the attacking, the way the attack flowed for the Sharks for large parts of the game. Actually, they looked pretty crisp with the ball in hand. So.
Wade Graham, 5'8".
Yeah,
didn't we mention that at some point?
Played in a bit of a dinner suit and just sort of kicked the ball around. Didn't do the tough work that he's going to have to do out on an edge, but. It is an option if players go down and stuff like that. He could probably come and play a 13 role and chime into the 6 at different times. But
and I guess Daniel Atkinson's probably in the frame now with injury to.
Well, they sold one. They sold Lockie.
Two, and injury to Dykes. So he's probably
sold one, lost one, and they've found another one.
Probably not far off the mark here, and Azira will be. They'll probably be.
Yeah, definitely. You got Harodi who could go back there. You could probably push Mulitano back there if you really had to. They do have a few options back there to cover the fullback role if needed. But interested to see how they go when they Kennedy's a big one. I'll be watching him pretty closely this week.
You gonna keep going or you gonna break?
No, all good.
No, all good. Keep going. All right. For the other Friday night game, 30-28, the Seagulls beat the Bunnies.
It's a really very exciting game.
Entertaining game, yeah. It was quite a good game of rugby league. Where, well, for a lot of it, Blake Taff looked every bit a first grader. He looked okay, and young 5'8" Dion Taupa. Tigers, another Tigers junior, just for the record.
Just for the record.
Looked very exciting at times. To get them up and going early, and look, could have been anything. The Davey Moali, Sele, and Co set a nice platform. Young Tallis Duncan again, as well, set a nice platform. And then Manly sort of got the ascendancy and off they went. But big takeaways for the Bunnies for you, Barn.
I thought Mamazoulas looked pretty good in the half an hour odd that he played. Definitely a good backup for Cook, but obviously he's only going to play when Cook's not there. So I can't see them bringing him in to play 20 minutes here and there to give Cook a rest. But dare say Cook will be playing 80 minutes.
They had an injury in Freeze. Keep going. No, it wasn't them.
No, you're thinking of Connor Watson, I think. But the 6 was fantastic. He looked every bit of a potential first grader coming through.
Big body, rangy.
Yeah. Fast feet, good passing game as well. His kicking game didn't get tested a great deal because the Rabbits seemed to spend a lot of time down Manly's end when they actually had the ball. But yeah, it was definitely an exciting game of football. It sort of seesawed back and forth there. Cheekham was okay without setting the world on fire. Nobody really stood out in this game apart from the 5'8" for me for the Rabbits. And the ones you mentioned, Taff did look really good at times, but he's got that head explosion in him where he just seems to make everything he could do wrong for about 5 minutes. He seems to do at different times, and then snaps back into game mode and switches back on. But
he's a very clean kicker as well, but he's also got the issue of what else can he be but a fullback? He's not really big enough to be a centre or even a winger. I suppose he can cover the halves if they're...
I think that's probably...
might plug in where Ilias or Walker need
what
him,
he is, or a small fullback. But the days of a small fullback are really starting to go, unless you're someone like Matt Bowen with electric footwork and just speed the burn. But it's sort of questionable where he actually fits into this team, considering I don't think there's about 2 of them that have been named this week out of the whole lot. So there'll be a completely different team coming up into this week.
This week, Manly, they played a few. We've sort of touched last year on Tamalo Vega. I think in the very, very limited chances he got, but big body winger, another one, footwork, good finisher. But
probably not going to jump over anybody.
I don't mean to sound like the dime a dozen, but he's probably your prototype big body winger now. Cooper John's probably the best game I've ever seen him play.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
He's outstanding. He's
ball
playing intelligent early on, just to be able to pick the cut out. Some of his kicking was very smart, and late on his short balls work was very good. So, as now coming in here as a backup 5'8", I mean he's come out of the Melbourne system, I guess, so he must have learned something down there.
Very good short kicking game at different points as well.
He looked fantastic. He had a great game.
Absolutely. Sipley had a pretty good game, considering there's been question marks around him because he sort of fades in and out of games at different times. Gordon Chan Kum Tong, the number 9, who played pretty big minutes and looks every bit of a backup for Lachlan Croker. Going through the season, I wouldn't be surprised if he's someone who does start playing.
They need a 14, don't they?
20, 30
minutes.
minutes.
About Schuster being 5'8", but they've lost Walker.
Yes.
So they need that other.
And they're very good. His service seemed quite clean. He when he picked to run was quite incisive at different times as well. So he looked like one that could end up blending into this squad by the end of the season.
And Tua Palutu should have that wing spot down pat now.
You would think so.
He was very good again.
Ever since he's come in, I think there's been 1 or 2 average games out of him, but he's seemed like an above-average winger since he started in the NRL. Tui Palutu had big raps on him for a while, and nothing didn't change after this one.
Anything in terms of not a noticeable change in structure, I think, from Seabold yet?
No, absolutely not. Most teams played the same sort of footy this week in the trials. It's that 2 hit-ups through the middle, have a little sniff around an edge somewhere, and then go to the edges. You're not going to see the orchestrated plays come in for probably 5 or 6 weeks until everyone's got their full fitness back on. You might see 1 or 2 surprise plays here and there, but the defence probably looked a little bit better. Just the control through the middle. They didn't seem to sort of get pushed back constantly through the middle of the field. But
the rumour is allegedly, Harper's on the outer and trying to be offloaded somewhere.
I heard something like that.
I assume they'll look for those bigger... Well, they've still got a crowbar cooler in somewhere. And
there's a rumour. I think it's a horrible rumour. I don't know if it's going to come true. It doesn't make sense why
they go after a back row when they've got the best, as good a back row stocks as anyone.
Zach Fulton.
And Zach Fulton was fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
looked pretty good. Didn't get a huge amount of involvement, but didn't make any errors. He didn't have that big high energy enthusiasm that he had with his NRL debut, but yeah, definitely didn't do anything wrong, and it still wouldn't surprise me if you see him as the 14 going forward.
Anything else to take away from this game?
No, I think the Bunnies probably shot themselves in the foot in the last 15, 20 minutes of this game. They sort of gave it away a little bit, but it's a trial
sort
game.
of the feel of every game.
And then
really,
you pull as you said, when you pull 5 or 6 players off the field, it changes the whole dynamic. So
yeah, but even the games where teams won and they looked closer than they were, they could have gone the other way if they left them out there. But hot weather and everything.
absolutely.
In the heat Saturday afternoon, Penrith 22 beat Parramatta 16, and for me the tale of this was Parramatta had a bunch of ball and a bunch of opportunity, didn't quite know what they were supposed to do with it, and if Mitch Moses is going, it's a little bit of a... I know there's no other... The rest of the spine wasn't there, I know before people have a go at me as I go and press record on the camera. It's a bit of a terrifying glimpse into life without Mitch Moses, potentially.
One of their spine players was there in Hodgson, and I thought he was very underwhelming. Obviously, the bloke hasn't played for 2 years, so yeah, there's plenty of excuses, but made a couple of very fundamental errors and didn't have a lot of involvement in the game whatsoever. Service looked okay, but there was a lot of other hookers that looked a lot better over the weekend than what Hodgson did.
We'll get to one later.
Sean Russell and Lumi look like they're both going to be playing off for the second wing spot aside Sivo this weekend. So,
and there's a centre spot up for grab with Waka Blake broken arm.
Oh yeah, true. And Zach Sini looked like he went okay. Actually, he looked a bit more robust. He was probably close to Parramatta's best on the field.
And named in centre is interesting because maybe I think he's there again this week. So.
Yeah, he's put a little bit of size on. He looked he wasn't getting thrown around in tackles like he was for the Tigers there after that first stellar game that he played with these fans on the hill screaming his name for the majority of the game. But yeah, from someone who had a fantastic debut and then probably had a couple of subpar games, I thought he was quite good in this one and did look a lot more robust, especially carrying the ball than what he had previously. So,
look, Rankin's the captain coach of Reggie's, I believe, so he was just doing a job out there. Fine, cool, but underwhelming. I thought Arthur.
Again, yeah, he's more and more I see him, the less and less I think he's a first grade, even as a first grade replacement, to be honest. But
especially where,
did score a couple of tries in the grand final, but
we're comparing, and it's early on, but we've heard for 2 years how he's the best trainer there, and he's got all these brains and this and that, and I'm sure he's a fucking great bloke. I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
No, this is never ever personal, but even compared to what Flanagan put on the table, comparing
absolutely.
apples to apples, that was Flanagan looked great. I thought at point.
Puru for the Sharks playing.
And
He probably played more of a 6 than a 7, but I thought he was quite good for the Sharks.
But just in terms of how much
Metcalf
opportunity they had, Para probably should have won this game.
Yeah.
And we didn't see it, which is the concern more than anything. But the forwards are all serviceable.
Not really.
Madison spent a lot of minutes on the field.
A lot of time.
Madison probably got a big blowout. Now he gets a month off. So
didn't that come back to bite him in the ass?
Yeah, well. Did you really see much out of Dory?
Ogden was pretty good.
Yeah.
Off Hickey, Ogden was pretty decent. He's probably their best forward on the field, really. But
coming over from where did he come? Dogs, I think. Bulldogs. Yeah.
And as a backup front rower, will probably be serviceable for big parts of the year. But Dory, again, another one who came across from the Dogs. He'll be touch and go whether he gets a spot in the 17, but I thought he was okay at different parts. But yeah, they definitely missed their big boys in the middle of the field. They'll be crying out for them to come back because that was where they lost the game. They just really couldn't get any forward momentum, no matter how much time and position they had on the field. They just weren't breaking down that front door to set up anything outside it. So, which obviously doesn't help the halves, even though we've both said that they probably weren't great. But I think they were playing off the back foot for a fair bit of it.
And when you talk about systems, comparing the Tiger system, Shark system, now the Penrith system, Penrith for a lot of it didn't miss a beat in hot weather. They were fine, especially given they're all kids. Given we could have probably recognised 3 blokes on the field as they ran out. They were good. They're up to the task. And I thought the front rowers are pretty good. Smith and Henry laid enough of a platform there. Zach Hostings, did he play much?
He played about half an hour, I
decent
think.
touches.
Yeah.
And
Matt Eisenhuth did his half an hour that he does most games, coming off the bench, which is what you're going to see for the majority of the year.
But
the young fella on the wing was Jesse McLean.
Yeah,
Big
well,
raps.
I think he was upgraded the day before this to top 30, and I was told rightfully so. And we know why they were happy to let Staines go. I
Big
guess.
raps on him coming through. Has good footwork, speed. Decent size on him as well. So
I think we'll see more of him as we head towards a world where they don't have Crichton either.
Like they got a million blokes there.
Well,
so he's still going to be waiting.
The try of the weekend was I think it was disallowed, the Taruva McLean try.
Yep.
That was like just instinct, and but they pinched a few intercepts. They've obviously awareness, sharpness. They I don't think I could fault any of the backs really.
Yeah, well, they've been the best team in all three grades, I think, for the last couple of years. Excuse me.
But it's pretty clear obviously the junior system out here works, because look at Piru at Sharks. He looked pretty close to ready to go. There's another, Katoa.
Yeah.
He's pretty close to ready to go. Amazing. Just incredible that it's working so well.
They haven't had the
Hopgood
taste in first grade
All-Star
either.
Game.
They've been sitting in the backgrounds playing reserve grade, and they're not far off first grade standards.
We spent a month ago raving about Sonny, well, not raving, but saying Kenny and Sonny Luca, your go-to Supercoach guys. And Summerton came out, and in a lot of other clubs, people would be screaming for him to be starting at 14 or 9. So, and he looks bigger than both of them.
He does.
Rangy, smart, fast. He's got something to offer as well.
Yeah.
What do we say?
It makes it hard when you play 30 players. Obviously, a lot of blokes didn't get a lot of minutes.
And I know there's a spruik on Riley Smith, who's a dummy half as well. But yeah.
Yep. Obviously, they're going to go with the tried and true, as they always do. With I think Sonny Luke will end up being their biggest attacking weapon out of any of the hookers that they do have coming through. But they'll play him how Old mate will start for 20 minutes, half an hour. What's his name? The hooker.
Mitch Kenny.
Mitch Kenny will play for 20 minutes,
and
half an hour.
Probably takes that rotation.
Absorb that
defence, the back end,
and then
play
Sonny Luke will come on like Coruscant. It will be an issue coming up against some of the better teams, but majority of the comp, I don't think it'll matter too much.
Yeah, I don't think you can even grade Penrith off this, because it's
absolutely not.
Apart from saying it's scary for the next
the
10
New South
years as
Wales
well.
Cup team.
And I would almost give Para a fail.
Yeah, almost.
I know it's
again a team with nobody in it. When you see their front row rotation come back in, that's obviously what they build their game around, is RCG and Paulo bashing down that front door, which gives time to the outside backs, which you'll see more of this week and going through the start of the year. But yeah, I still think they're probably not going to be top 4, but
no,
closer to the bottom.
Especially not if Moses decides to leave. And I was thinking about this the other day. Imagine if Moses does sign with the Tigers. This is a club that booed their coach for getting him the grand final. Yeah. How are they going to treat him every Friday night at Bankwest when he walks out there?
I know.
There was suggestion on social media today, just in general, that perhaps that's why these figures have been leaked to the media. The 6.5 million at Tigers versus 4 at
try and soften it.
Because if they do leave, then the fans at least will go, well, he's taking a $2 million.
Couldn't really afford it. Yeah.
But he's going to get his ass booed out.
Oh, mate, the fact that the last 3 or 4 years, like, he's had him up and in contention for... I know there was a couple of years they went out in the first week or the second week, but there's 10 other teams that would love to be in that position. You know 100%. What I mean? And you got the majority of the fan base booing him and carrying on. Saw a couple today saying he'd be sacked by round 2 and round 3. That's not going to happen, guys.
That said, if they miss the 8, I don't know.
No, I can see him getting sacked by the end of the year, but he's not getting sacked round 2, round 5, round 10.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know. They're Parramatta, The next Saturday, well, the main event Saturday was St Helens 30 beating the Dragons 18. I'll be honest, Barn, I did watch this game. It went back and tried to watch the mini again.
Right.
Not a lot of it sunk in. So I don't know why, but 30-18, Barn. What do you take away from the St Helens team against? Probably a lot of what you see is what you get from the Dragons.
Yeah, there was. They did probably play more first graders than a lot of the other teams coming in. Obviously, no Hunt, which makes a massive difference in the structure of the way that they play. But St Helens, I think, were flattered a little bit by their opposition, to be honest. They did look dominant. They looked in control for the majority of the game. Their front rowers were definitely... their entire forward pack was dominant compared to the opposition that they were playing against. Realistically, the only sort of forwards that put up a bit of a fight were Blake Laurie again, which you get out of him every week, but he's not kicking doors down and throwing offloads and all that kind of stuff. He's just getting through his work. Murdoch Masilla for his first hit out for the Dragons.
Jeez, they need him.
Wasn't bad. Yeah, they
He'll
definitely
end up
need
starting
that
for
size.
him
Possibly
every week, I'd suggest.
I would think so. If not, he'll be the first one that comes on 15, 20 minutes into the game. But yeah, I think St Helens were definitely flattered by their opposition. Don't get me wrong, they're a decent side. They'd probably finish maybe 7th or 8th or somewhere between 7th and 10th in an NRL competition, just off what I saw this week. Obviously, they've come over here. There's some different things. They could possibly even finish a little bit higher, being in the NRL for an entire season.
And
or no jet lag and all that kind of thing. But their half options weren't great. Dodd was the standout out of him and Lomax, but Johnny Lomax, I'd be playing Wellesby at 6 in front of him, and trying to find a young kid that can play fullback. But Jack Wellesby was close to their best player on the field. Tommy Makinson, again, who's been a superstar over in
I don't watch
the
enough
Super
to
League
comment
for a long
on
time.
their style of play, but it seems every time I watch highlight reels, it's those two getting him out of some sort of trouble or
Yeah, absolutely.
scoring points out of their arse or whatever it might be.
Conrad Hurrell was his typical bulldozing sort of self, who makes an error here and there but does a few nice things. Their centres were probably worse than the Dragon centres, to be honest. The St George centres, to be honest.
Yeah.
And
But we know
really
know Conrad Hurrell. Like they're exposed players. We know who Conrad Hurrell is.
Will
in NRL.
Hopewade.
We know
Obviously, he's at the
Hopewade
back
is-
end of his career. Mark Percival didn't have a great game. There wasn't anyone that really tore the game apart for St Helens, but they did look much better. The standouts, apart from the two I mentioned in Wellesby and Mackinson, were Ignatius Parsi, another one we know from the Warriors that used to just get through his work and be a good front rower. Curtis Sirinen.
He was good, Sirinen. He was very good.
Yeah, he was decent. He probably wasn't in the didn't look like a top echelon back rower, but he definitely looked like a serviceable, still a serviceable NRL back rower. And the other front rower, Alex Walmsley, he was probably the whole reason that they got forward and dominated this Dragons.
How old is he? I'm sorry.
31, 30, 31, something like that.
He's someone that probably should be on something.
But he's a massive body, and
He
he just caused all sorts of problems through the middle of the field for St George. They couldn't control him, and it generally was off the back of him. Roby, 38, 39, I think, but still very good service out of dummy half. And as soon as
38 games or something.
as soon as they pushed through the middle and made a bit of ground, he got the ball very quickly to his halves, who basically caught and passed, and Wellesby got involved.
Beautiful grubber to set up that early try, and
But the Dragons flattered them. I think Penrith will put them away quite comfortably this week, considering that they're marching out pretty close to their top squad. I think they'll probably beat them by 3 or 4 tries, to be honest. And St Helens will sort of. All the people that were, or especially the Dragons fans that were saying that the the Super League champions only beat us by 12, will be sitting back going, "Oh, okay, maybe we weren't as good as what we thought we were." But
is there anything to take for the Dragons? I'm just even looking at Laurie's the only forward that hit 100 metres.
Moses Mbai was close to their best player. Blake Laurie was their best player.
Yeah.
And Moses Mbai was close to their best player, who's been a bit part player for the last 5 years. So, realistically, no. Who are they going to play at 6 with?
It looks.
Hunt?
I assume it's Mbai.
maybe.
Here's what I was thinking. Actually, watching back the mini for
Did
this
Sullivan
game,
Sullivan cop an injury? So there's no
I
Amone,
haven't
no Sullivan now
seen.
as
No,
well.
I think he did. Yeah.
So
Here's what I was thinking watching
just
this.
sort of left with Mbai.
Now you're at this stage as Dragons, and obviously I think Jack Bird's injured. Why wouldn't you just throw Lomax at 6?
Yeah,
Or fullback. Put him back to
he'd
fullback.
probably be better at fullback.
Put him to fullback, and then look at what you've got around that. Because at least gives you a across the
Sloan
field attack.
on a wing.
It gives your supposed best player a
License
free rein.
to get around the
'cause
field.
at the moment being out there, and he was.
I don't know what his passing game's like, to be honest.
Nah,
Apart
he's
from
got
that flick
stupid
pass,
flicky pass in the second row, but
I haven't really seen him put his winger away that often. So.
But maybe fullback, maybe it's a go because you're now at the bottom of the barrel. You're missing your top 4 options. Put him in the spine and see
Tell
how
him
he
to
goes.
run into holes in
We
and
keep
around.
hearing he makes shit up and he's a genius, so let's see it.
Yeah, I don't know. This came up with more questions for me than answers. Like, as I said, the St Helens centres were poor, but Lomax and Sully weren't any better. Neither was Big-Eye. There was a lot of players in this game that really did not play. It ended up being a majority forward battle for a big part of the game, but there was no creative spark out of the Dragons apart from Mbai, and the only forward that really stood up and probably took it to St Helens was Blake Laurie. So.
Yeah, what do we say? It is what it is.
It's-
We move on. Like we forecast it, and we can't be upset about it.
No.
Sunday kicked off with the Roosters 32 over the Storm 24. And cheeky old Robo had to do something different, and instead he decided to save all his stars to the last 20 minutes instead of the first half hour, which is quite genius, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
But we got to see some young chooks in action in entertaining enough 80 minutes of footy, Barn. Did you have a big takeaway from where do you want to start?
Oh, we'll start with the Storm. Hey?
Yeah.
I thought Fa'alago at fullback was fucking amazing. It was one of the better performances over the weekend, to be honest.
Well, he's not far away from probably
200
getting
odd running meters, big, strong. I think he's on a development contract, so he's probably not going to be seen until round 10 or whatever it is. But he was close to their best attacking option. I thought young Wishart popped up at some really nice opportune moments as well, and just seemed to be in the right spot when when the attack was on, and got in and around the football, which caused a lot of good broken play. Josh King was very good at 13, which I think obviously now probably be
Now
his
he's in that
position
spot,
for the rest of the year. Bronson Garlick, a young fellow who actually played some really good football. I think he played a game towards the back end of last year and was quite good as well. And his debut for the was it Storm or was it South?
No,
Not
he
sure.
was.
He might have
hang
been
on.
at the Storm, but I do remember him playing
Storm,
a
I
game
think.
last
He was
year, and he
Storm
was quite good.
When they're
So
right at the bottom of.
somebody that you might see coming in and taking a bench spot at some point during the year. Elise Cattell was probably a little bit disappointing, considering he's going to be a starting back rower for the Storm coming through. But the Will Warbrick, who looks like now is probably going to be slated for a wing spot, with Remy Smith moving into the centres to cover Olam.
Yep.
Or young Tonomapia, depending on which sort of way they go there, is going to be interesting. But he looks fast. You can tell he's a bit of a touch player. He's not someone who's massively into the contact. Or not a touch, what was it, rugby sevens, I think he came from. But he's not a huge one for contact. But if put a little bit of size on him and get him into a hole, he's definitely quick enough to cause a lot of headaches for the opposition if you put him in the right spot. So, but I thought the Storm were probably a little bit better than I thought they would be.
Yeah.
I expected the Roosters to dominate the large parts of this game, but there was a few of the younger kids that sort of, as I mentioned in Wishart, I thought Pizzette was pretty decent as well. He had a few nice touches and sort of controlled them around the field without being a superstar. But I thought they were a bit more competitive than I actually thought they would be by the end of this game. So
Yeah, they will. I think so, and I think, like I said, their backline's looking at Warbrick's getting a start this week. Eremea, Grant Anderson's in that convo. Remus Smith and
Tonomapia.
Tonomapia. Yeah,
You'll see Meany come back. He will probably
Meany's
take
gonna
the
take
fullback
one.
spot. Yeah.
Their issues are forwards.
Yeah.
Well, their issues their forwards and their backs, but who then fills 80 minutes doing the yeoman's work up front is where we need to get to. Josh King, yeah, Christian Walsh only had a bit part, so got taken a
he's
few
coming
times.
back from
and
a
he'll be
year
right. That's just
away.
cool.
He'll be fine.
Um,
Joe Chan looked like someone who might end up getting a bench spot.
So
Pretty big
I
boy,
guess this week's going to be tell more for them.
Yep. Absolutely. You'll see their starting pack come back this week, and you'll be able to sort of judge a little bit more on how they go.
Chooks excited me. I thought there were lots of positive signs there. Well, first of all, interesting seeing Jake Turbin play 5'8", but he had a couple of pinpoint kicks, and he wasn't bad. I assume they've probably just gone, well, you're now Connor Watson, and so they've named him here, and he was fine.
Yeah, him and Hutchinson will probably swap and change
around.
in between that role.
Really liked what I saw from El Zakam. He's another big rangy back rower that they've got in Tupanua mould.
Just pull him out of the cupboard and throw him on the field.
Big rangy, breaks a tackle as an offload. I thought he was almost one of the most eye-catching players on the field, I'd say. Sia Wong, he's the one with the wraps. He was good. And Junior Punga came over from the Tigers last year, scored a try. He was good as well.
Most of their first graders that are going to play only sort of played 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, so then what then came on, and Cheese did look fit, looked ready to go. He only had a couple of bits.
His service was fantastic. His service was better than I've seen for quite a while.
Yeah, just fit and clean, ready to go. The player I'm excited for this year now, and watching this, and I think I messaged you at cricket,
you did.
But I messaged you, and like 3 minutes later it happened. But when I was watching it, Cheese can now create that 1-2 punch with Victor Radley that he had. And now he can now have that little cannonball run to set up Radley, either run to the post, which is what happened, or feed Radley to that. I think it's going to be a great year for Victor Radley because he's going to get clean service. He's had a couple of years of injury, suspension, head knocks, da-da-da-da. He's now got
a bit more of a focal point.
He's got another bash brother that's going to get in and do a bit of pig work with him.
And someone who's going to try and put him in positions.
And be aiming to get him. Yeah. But the way he went back out to the left to put Radley under the post, I was like, well, that's it. That's perfection. That's what they want back going again. And I think now, when we talk Supercoach-wise, Radley around the 428, I think he is, sort of has me a little bit excited now. I know I've actually gone out and...
I had him there last year. And
but he's had that...
they never really gave him
when we're talking
the
Supercoach, last year was a messed up year. Yeah. Before that, he was playing hooker. But I think it might be the year he gets to be the best Radley he can be, and whatever that means may not be. But I think Cheese is of all. We didn't really talk about it. We thought it's great for the back rows, but for the 13, I think Brandon Smith's going to be fantastic for him.
Yeah, especially because he gets to be, Radley gets to choose what side of the field he gets involved on,
and to
can
make
pick
sure he
his
gets the
spot
right
defenders.
Service. And get back to cutting blokes down and doing it. In the meantime, Sam Walker was good. The first grade, as you said.
Got a little confused as he does every now and then. I think he's got that many options running through his head. He sort of tricks himself a little bit, but
yeah. But I thought the first graders all came on and got to be flattered and flattered themselves. That's good.
Yeah, Egan was pretty good.
Yeah,
Egan Butcher again. Just came on, does his job as he does most weeks. But
any other takeaways for the Chookies?
I would have liked to see him put the foot down. I think they were pretty well dominant after about 20 minutes of that second half, and I thought they probably could have blown the Storm out, but they didn't. Obviously comes with taking players off. You don't want, it's the first trial of the season. You don't want them to get injured and all the rest of that. But, yeah, I think it's a really good warm-up for them, and I think come round 3 or 4, you're going to see them.
It's exactly what we want when we're spruiking them as top 2. I think it's exactly what you want to see, and this weekend will be the cherry on top, I hope. We get down to Maria, where 34-18, the Doggies beat Canberra, who I keep getting told are a top 4 team. And unfortunately have lost their fullback out of this game. But, geez, I tell you what, Reid Barney might have been one of the stars of the weekend. His service and what he's brought to that team. And we're only talking about a trial here, but...
And what, do you play 55 minutes or something?
55 or so. He's going to bring this team to life. And And what I jerried is that he's been in a team and you've made the case that he's the best hooker in the game.
Service, passing off the ground,
But
absolutely.
in the obviously top 3, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
He's now in a team. He's been in a team with
They're just
a
used
dominant
to it,
spine,
and they
but he's
do
been
it.
with a team of 3 blokes that always want the ball: Moses, Gutho, Dill.
Yep.
He's now coming here where he's got Burton. He's got a young half. He's got Burton who'll want
play, but he will.
Yeah. You got Burton who knows his role and is very good at it, and we'll find out what for now Perrin brings, whether that's a placeholder, whether it's crying down the road. I think he's going to look $1 million this year, Reid Marnie, and his service this game and his timing. He's going to kick a lot more this year. I feel that's coming.
Yep.
And he's, I think he's just
you even look at it like the Dogs had Jeremy Marshall-King last year, right?
Yeah.
Quite a good,
good
had
hooker.
quite a good season.
Yeah.
But you look at the way that their forwards rolled onto that football when when Mahoney was out there. It's just the way he brings them onto the football. Like he doesn't hit them on the chest so that they, can catch it and keep running upright. He puts it out in front of them, down a little bit lower, so they have to get down.
Yeah.
They have to take the ball at pace, and they're in that brace position already before they even hit the line.
Yeah.
Like the ball is within a couple of inches of being perfect the majority of the time. When it's coming off the ground, it's quick, it's where it needs to be, and it gets the forwards just rolling onto the ball. And by the time they've got the ball, they've sort of set themselves up ready for contact. The defence has only moved a couple of metres, and it just gets that roll, tackle after tackle after tackle. You saw how good the forwards looked, even though it wasn't their best forward pack. They looked 10 times better than what they did.
He made
year.
Preston look like a bloke that should be playing first grade. He made Ryan Sutton's going to enjoy this year.
Absolutely.
And then,
I think he's going to be close to one of the buys of the year, especially in your Supercoach. I think because he's going to get a lot more minutes than what he got at Canberra. The year before at Canberra, he was one of their better players, and for whatever happened last year under Ricky, he got sort of excluded out of that team a bit. Like he wasn't dropped, but his minutes were drastically reduced. I think he's going to be a big one for the Dogs.
And they've turned around already and said, you know what, TPJ's playing in the middle.
Yep.
Sorrell's come out and said it. TPJ's going to say it. They've said, no, I'm front rower now. Cool. So he's going to have one job, almost what Titans should be doing for feeder. But it's, you can have him, you can have Thompson, hopefully a bit of a freshen up, new coach, new opinion. We know how good he is. Kikau, Fatala Mariner.
Franklin Pele, possibly.
And Pele, how good did Pele look?
Looked $1 million.
Pele looked like he had footwork, he had time, he had space.
Huge offload.
Holding up 2 and 3 blokes to offload. And then, like I said, Preston.
And, I've been spruiking him for 2 years now, and the Sharks haven't given him an opportunity for whatever reason, but he could be a massive coming off the bench for the Bulldogs.
Yep.
They look very good. And the biggest takeaway I had out of this game was we've been mentioning for the last 12 months how slow Canberra look, right? You got a team full of kids. They still look good. Still look slow with a team full of kids.
Yeah.
There is very little pace in this Canberra team. Way they may be very well drilled. They may be all good hard workers. But there's nobody like you look at Hayes Perham and the way that he set the field alight at different times, stepping people, going through, running through gaps or causing gaps just because of his footwork and the acceleration. There's very little acceleration in this Canberra squad. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something that's been coached out of them, something that's been coached into them, but they look slow.
And they've lost the one bloke that had it.
Look slow. Yeah, absolutely.
Savage. And no Seb Chris this week, who you'd probably argue is, I guess, the second
one of their
fastest.
quicker ones, yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to think.
Don't get me wrong, blokes like Schiller looks like a very fundamentally good winger who does a lot of the right things constantly, which is what you want, but he doesn't seem to have the pace to burn somebody on the outside.
No.
The halfback that played, I was giving him raps all last year. He was really good fundamentally again with his kicking games. Yeah, Brad Schneider.
And same as Frawley, like they
did
both
some
fine.
nice things, but they're not going to step on the inside of someone and burn them. Like
No.
you look at the likes of Hines, Jerome Hughes, your Moses, your better
everyone.
halfbacks, Cleary.
Yeah.
They've got that step and go, that bit of acceleration. Your better centres, your better wingers. The ones that stand out are the guys with that little bit of if it's not acceleration, it's pace or it's both. It's just something that you need in a team, and
Yeah.
it concerns me. It doesn't seem that there's much of it in
And
this
who's
Canberra
realistically,
ranks.
who's you're getting Whiten back in, you're getting Fogarty back in, who they desperately need.
Yes.
White
Whiten was fantastic in the
Yeah,
Maori game,
great.
playing at centre.
Who'd have
But
thought?
anyway,
He's probably if he would be the best. He probably is the best center in the game.
and defends like a lock. So
He
they're the
probably
two
is the
positions we've been
best
saying for
centre
2
in the
years where he
game.
should be playing. But
And
anyway,
they've named Tarpanay at 13 this week, which goes to show, I think, shows what they're missing because they're missing Elliott, who had some footwork and creativity.
Yep.
They're missing Sutton, who had some
Yes.
footwork and creativity. And they're going to bring Whitehead back in, who we know, very good tradesman. This team is very good. They're very good.
it's
very
gone
fit
backwards in the last 12 months.
tradesmen.
So why
They're
not?
actually a much more talented and tradesman like Dragons team. They're
Yes.
probably better. They're bigger and better built. That's all they are.
Yep.
And they're going to have more spark because they've got the best centre in the game playing 5'8", and they're going to have Fogarty, who has some creativity, is a
Yeah,
great
absolutely
kicker,
does.
going to lead him around. They're going to be fine. So back to my point about how yes, they're going to be the team that good teams will beat and shit teams will lose to. They're exactly who they are.
Yeah.
They're just like if you go on NRL 2025 and you play the team that's all
The smack
ranking
middle
75.
average. Yeah.
that's who they are. And until I see otherwise, I don't have any reason to change it.
No. Summed that up pretty well, I think. Croker looked lost at times. It's sad considering, I want to see him play his 300th game. I want to see him be the
Yeah.
leading point scorer in the NRL, all the rest of that. But I'm not sure he's going to get there.
He doesn't, and you can't now play NRL without a left shoulder.
No.
You just can't.
Absolutely, especially if you're a right centre.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned, Snyder I thought was really good again. He's someone that I could see playing a 14 role. I said it last year. I'll say it again.
Put him
But
just put him in halves and fucking move Whiten out there.
to the 13 or centre.
Especially
yes.
now, actually, no, 13, especially now they need it. Why would you
Play
move
Tarpanay
Tarpanay
up
out of the
front.
middle? Well, you're now taking meters off Tarpanay for
Yep.
the sake of whatever he's going to do, pretend to be Patrick Carrigan.
It's all right. We'll sign Ricky Stewart for 10 years.
And Madge is
Like
there
I
now,
heard
hey.
today, there was fucking so much rhetoric today. Oh, the Sharks are signing Fitzgibbon for 5 years. He needs to give him at least one premiership in the next 5 years, mate. Anyone call Ricky Stewart and ask him about now he's gone for the last fucking
Has Ricky ever won, has
8,
Ricky won a
9
premiership
years?
apart from East?
He won the one at the Roosters. Yeah.
When Gus was still there. In his
Got
first year.
kicked out of Parramatta.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like he's
No,
actually.
he got Canberra to a grand final, but other than that, it's been running 7th or 8th for 8, 9 years. Anyway, I'm off the point. I
No,
thought
that's right.
Solo was pretty good for the Raiders. In the front row, get a bench rotation spot, but other than himself and Schneider, there was not a lot of shining lights in this game for Canberra. It probably confirmed for me more that there probably are bottom of the 8, maybe not even in the 8. at
You
the
know,
end of the
you
year.
know, a Bulldogs or a Tigers or whoever's going to get
Someone's
hot,
going to jump out of the ground.
and a team
Yeah.
that can score 28 points is going to score 8 more points than they're capable of. Right
Trey
now.
Mooney again looked okay. For all the raps on him, he probably should have been a little bit better performance in this game, but it is the first trial of the year. So Max King again put his name up in lights. He's another one who's going to be a bench front rower or possibly even a starter if they push Thompson
Well,
back to the
to
bench.
the Gumps'
at
wishes,
different times,
we
but-
probably don't see Corey Waddell a lot because you're going to have your Pele, your Max King, and co in front of
Thompson,
Thompson, TPJ,
TPJ, yep.
et cetera, et cetera.
Ryan Sutton, another one we mentioned, looked really good. Jacob Preston looked like probably close to the best player on the field. Probably footwork's not fantastic, but he's got an offload and, he's robust and does a job through the middle. Kiraz, again, was good without being outstanding, but I think is another one of those junior wingers / centres coming through that's probably a bit above average and will keep a spot.
Now, a sign of intent that Avarillo was named here without her Perambingi. So obviously he's playing centres, and we didn't see a lot. Alamotti didn't get a lot of ball, but he
didn't.
get a try there. He broke a couple of tackles. He'll start. I assume he's starting there, so he'll get better.
He's always been
Averillo,
touted as a defensive centre, I think, more than an attacking centre. But
big boy. Yeah.
did a decent job.
And the half. So I thought Flanagan was fairly good. I
Yeah,
thought
he was.
he threw that early pass, the early
Yeah.
pass for a try.
Did.
Had another couple of nice involvements and did enough to say, yeah, you'd be fine to see a good season of him at 7.
Well, they backed him in at the end of last year,
And now Reed giving him the right service should look better. And Reynolds was
Absolutely.
fine. Yeah, Reynolds was good.
he's only ever going to be a bit part player coming back. He's
Yeah.
more there for the team morale and all the rest of it. You saw all the social media posts with him,
Yeah.
getting announced and all the rest of it. And it's
Captain of
quite
New South
clear
Wales
that
Cup if
everybody
he's-
loves
yeah.
him. And
Yeah.
so Jarrell Skelton, I think, has come across from the Waratahs. His brother plays for the Waratahs. One relative plays for the Waratahs, but he's a big boy. Still needs to sort of grow into what he's doing, but could probably find a spot there somewhere. And Topine was a little underwhelming for me. I thought he played enough minutes to probably have a little bit more impact, but did a couple of nice things. But
And Rajab didn't look necessarily out of place.
Actually looked really good. I
Yeah.
thought he actually looked really good.
How long you play? 15 minutes?
Passing game, nice
Fresh
little
player.
sort of short chip, half/bomb sort of kicking game. Apparently there's a few teams circling him at the moment, so we'll see
Could
what
probably
happens
use him.
there. But
Yeah, well, that's been denied, and everyone's full of shit. It's like Wellesby plays one game here,
who denied it,
and
Gus?
then Fox put out that every club wants Jack Wellesby.
If
Like,
Gus
fuck,
has
mate.
denied it, it's probably going to
Yeah.
happen.
Anyway, big tick for the Dogs. Big tick for the Dogs,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think they're rightfully excited for what might be ahead. And then the first of two Queensland draws, interestingly enough. 22-22, Cowboys and Dolphins. Cowboys got out of jail in the last minute or so. In fact, exactly the last minute. As we saw the Dolphins debut, and they were fine, Barn. What do you take away from these two teams? What do you take when
Probably wasn't quite NRL standard for the majority of this game. There was some
it's
flashes
the
of
5'8" that wasn't the NRL standard? He wasn't playing for the Cowboys, I know that. Anyway.
there was some really good flashes from a few players. Robert Derby and on the wing for the Cowboys was fantastic. I thought Mosen Drecke scored a couple of tries. Probably flattered him a little bit. He probably could have got a little bit more involved. Tom Chester at fullback was okay. But yeah, this Cowboys team's nothing like what's going to run out next week. I don't think any of them have been named, to be honest.
Tamo will
Oh,
do
yeah,
his half hour
Tamo
off
would
the
be
bench.
about the only one that's
And he
gonna
was
be
good.
named this week.
You do a good
Yeah.
half hour of bench every week.
And, yeah, he proved himself to be what he was doing at the Tigers last year. Just getting through his work, being that, reliable front rower that you need, and was probably close to their best one. The only other one you'd maybe mention was Sylvester Namo.
Big Namo, yeah.
Big body, caused a few problems for the Dolphins' defence. But, this was an interesting
Big
game
run
of
meters,
football.
weren't they? 3 blokes all running 200.
Yeah, Sedrugu, another front rower that
Mm.
might end up with a bench spot at some point. But realistically, there's nobody out of this Cowboys team that you're going to pen to be playing first grade apart from Tamo, as you
Well,
said.
we're told by Cowboys fans Tom Chester will play 14. I don't necessarily agree, but
Not sure.
Yeah.
They do have a few. It will be interesting who they actually slot into that 14 spot. Sarko was probably a bit disappointing at fullback for the Dolphins, to be honest.
it's not like him.
Bostock looked good in patches. Gildart was probably the best of the outside backs for the Dolphins, and again just sort of did his job that he's done for the majority of the time he's played. Okay in defence, okay in attack, but didn't set the world on fire.
I think Bostock, for a kid, he's got upside. He's
Oh,
tall.
yeah, absolutely.
He's good
got a bit of
jumper, he's
pace,
got
he's strong.
pace and size. So I could see him. I assume it'll be Edric and Azarko on the wings to start with, but
You would
I
think
can
so.
see him featuring at some point.
Or maybe testing you, depends what way they want to play that.
Yeah.
At
Oh
fullback.
yeah, Hammer's there. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, you got Hamaso as well.
Mm.
Yeah, so this Dolphins team will look a fair bit different as well coming into it. I thought Katoa probably outshone Milford.
Yeah, that's
Neither of them were brilliant, but Yeah.
I
Because
can see.
it
I
looks
think this
like
week
O'Sullivan's going to be
they
7.
have named Milford and O'Sullivan this week. Look, I can't say I'd be shocked, but I would think by round 10 we're seeing Katoa at least 14, if not 6 or 7.
Would think so. Herman Essa was probably the best prop on the field. Him and Jared Wallace did a really good job for the Dolphins, getting them through the middle of the field, which was a big part of the reason that they got as close as they did. I thought even though the Cowboys didn't have a lot of players, I thought they were probably the better team for big parts. Connolly Lumi was good in the back row. Ray Stone was fantastic. He was another one that would have been close to the best player on the field. He just chops blokes in half when they run at him. He's defensive. He's built in that Jake Trebojevic sort of mould. He's nowhere near as big, but his defensive his defensive setup is fantastic, and the way he drops down and just chops blokes' hips and legs out from underneath him.
I believe he's been named at 14, and suggesting Gilbert starts at 13, but they could do worse than getting Stone into the starting team.
You know, Stone could play 9. He could probably play back row at a pinch.
Probably
play 13.
Play 50 minutes anyway off the bench.
So, I dare say you'll see him playing half an hour, 40 minutes.
Maybe the Spruik player of the weekend, Tawari. Anything from him?
Tawari.
Valance Tawari. I've probably pronounced it right.
Yeah,
he's massive.
He barely had a touch, did he? I know he's a big guy, but I didn't see a lot of involvement out of him.
One hit up. There you go.
Don't really remember him at all. Farmer Sully did a decent job coming off the bench, and Mason Teague, they're probably going to be fighting each other for that sort of last forward spot in the rotation. But yeah, the forwards aren't going to be the Cowboys' issue. Their issue is going to be 6-1, and it's going to be their issue for the season long. I just think their defence might be better than a couple of other teams, which will
even
not finish last.
Defensive efforts in a couple of times there were fantastic.
I didn't mention him.
But they need him out there.
He didn't set the world on fire, but he was chasing everything. Yeah. He was, there to back
he nearly
up
ran down that
in attack, back up in defence.
Made the big break.
Yes. Yeah. He's just one of those guys that's always in and around the football, always looking for work, and someone you need in your.
Well, as we said in our preview, that's what Bennett's done. He's gone and found Ray Stone, Ewan Aitken, the Bromwiches, blokes that are going to put their arse on the line, and that's how you build a club in 5 years. That if you start with
absolutely
Luke Garner and
they find
Tommy
a half,
Talau,
find a half next year and a strike centre, then who knows? But
probably find another one popping out of Brisbane. Tricky one to take anything out of, to be honest, but entertaining game of footy, I suppose.
Yeah, it was. It was probably an NRL equivalent of 14th playing 15th.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, is what it was.
And we wrap up with 24-all, the Broncos and the Titans. Now, given how apparently you and I are so wrong about the Titans, what shone out here and made you change your mind on the Titans?
Nothing. And it probably confirmed for me more that the Broncos go close to missing the 8 as well. To be honest, I don't think the Broncos were that good. I think Reece Walsh carried them for large parts of, especially in their attacking play. I thought that's what interests me. They seem very lost at times. Obviously, you don't have Reynolds in there, which will make a difference if he gets on the field because he hasn't been named for this week, and there's talk that he might not be named for the first couple of weeks of the season as well. Jordan Pereira, another one we've mentioned year after year that deserves a spot somewhere, but so I've gone off to the Titans. What have you got? You got Jaden Campbell. It's hard because realistically their spine wasn't on the field.
Look, we're worried about our biggest concern, I'd say, would be the forwards, and Stimson and Jolliffe are both probably overperformed and were serviceable, but the Payne Haas was having a holiday and the rest of them weren't there. So
Payne Haas didn't really do much.
A grain of salt. Getting to the stage where I would suggest maybe they need to have the TPJ chat and say Fafidi is starting prop.
Yeah, well, he was one of their better forwards, but he really had very limited involvement as well. He made one or two little incisive runs down that right-hand side where he parks himself, and he did a little bit more defence than he did at different times last year. But out of anyone, it was probably Cleese Haas for me that looked like he was putting his name up as a bench rotation for the forwards for the Titans. But their forwards they were dominated for the majority of the game.
Yeah.
I think.
There's
I think I was surprised that the Titans scored as many points as they did. I think it came down more
it
to
came after
Brisbane
everyone went off.
errors and
then it's a few later
and then the
few
runaway
changes.
at the back end of the game. But
There was they scored the winger they scored all the points in the second half basically, and two of the runaway and then the late try out wide there, and he looked fine. Looks like a nice finish. Khan Pereira, I believe he's going to take
absolutely.
Marzu's spot.
He had a couple of errors in him, but he definitely looks like there's something about him. He's got some pace and a little bit of elusiveness there on the wings. So
Tanner Boyd, we know what we get with him, but his kicks are pretty good. He had two nice try assists, a nice kick, and a nice overlay. So look, if they start with him 7, that's what they're going to get, and it was fine.
Yeah, but he's more of a run first sort of mentality.
Well,
and
we
if
said
the
this
gaps
isn't-
aren't there in front of him, he's not supplying what
No,
his outside
but I
backs are
feel like
gonna
we
need,
said this
but-
is what they're getting, and actually the only bloke that really has that is Campbell, the real
Well,
spreading it early.
Foreign should be able to
But
help.
he's still
a
a
little
running
bit.
half, and AJ's a running.
He's a much better ball player than Tanner
absolutely.
Boyd.
But be interesting who controls that kicking now. We'll see this week, I suppose.
Depends how Kieran Foran's hamstrings are, I suppose.
We see Verrills. We'll see Verrills rolled out this week too. So
Slow,
you're not
sluggish
changing,
game of footy.
I
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think anyone really stood out over both sides of the field, apart from Reece Walsh, who looked very proactive.
Up,
he was in everything. He wanted to be involved in the game, and he was causing a lot of problems for the Dolphins' defence until he got his face broken, unfortunately. But
I would have been. Look, I am not as negative on the Broncos as you are, especially when you line up their full strength back line, and they've got strike on strike on strike.
I don't think they're going to miss the 8 by a long way. I just think they're going to be in that battle for the bottom of the 8, and they may just miss it the back end of the year.
I think Walsh
the thing that
adds
probably got me down more on the Broncos than anything was the way that they fell apart at the back end of last year. And I haven't seen any sort of, apart from maybe the Reece Walsh signing, which may add something at the back end of this year, I can't see much of it changing.
Well, I have put it down to, as I've done in the past, the
training
regime, the gassing
conditioning.
out.
Yeah.
That being said, if the same thing happens, Kev's probably not going to be there. I would be excited because I think Walsh does actually add something. He looked a different player to the back end of last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's involved, sharp. You could see him ticking over when he had the ball. It was, and he looked fresh, which is more important. I would be doing
Marty Tapau added something for the Broncos.
Yeah, well, probably he has to cover allegedly another forward that may not be around for much longer. But they do. You get Hask back, Carrigan back, your back row back. All of a sudden,
Flegler's.
Your Flegler and the other prop whose name just escapes me. Anyway, I think they're going to beat up. When you talk about gatekeep, actually, when you talk about gatekeepers, this is a gatekeeper team with more flair than Canberra.
Yeah.
If you're going to say
absolutely.
these two, if they're playing Canberra for 8th,
I'd probably
right
back
now, who
Brisbane.
are you backing? Yeah. Because I can see points. Pereira, he's a first-grade winger. He spent last year in Reggie's. He was fantastic on the
Probably
weekend.
still might not get a spot.
He won't, because they're going to roll Oates back out again, which you can't time
Coates and
because
Oates.
Coates and Oates. Yeah,
Yep.
I forgot about him. No, Coates is
Coates
down
is down at Melbourne
now. Oates, you mean Oates back, and you've got Selwyn,
Yeah, Cobbo.
who might get the first crack at fullback for a week or two. I would be the other bloke. If he's not in the 17th, he should be 18th. He's Tristan Saylor. He's now 2 weeks in a row. I know you're playing slow
Something different, isn't
reserve
it?
grade, but
There's
he's got a
bit of
point of
X
attack.
factor.
He can kick, he passes, he breaks tackles.
Decent speed.
X factors, if they get embraced by the right people, become stars. And you got to give Kevy credit. He's embraced his Selwyns, for better or worse, according to Selwyn. They've lost Tessie, so there's something there. He'll get to play a bit of first grade this year. And
Their nine's still an issue for me. Doesn't look like they're going to go looking.
You're getting Pakes and Walters, aren't you? Again?
Yeah, and both of those guys struggle with their service. Both of them struggle in defence. So I think they need to find another option there by the end of the year. But we'll see what happens there. Payne Haas was disappointing, but I don't think he was really interested in playing,
like
to be honest.
He had other things on his mind.
Yeah, quite possibly. And, yeah, realistically, they didn't have anybody else in there. Brendan Fry did a job, and so did Corey Jensen, but they're probably not going to be, they'll be playing bench rotation at best by, big parts of the year. And Marty Tapau, he'll be the other one. He was probably the standout
and you know what?
for me, to be honest. Just his ball,
when you get
ball
to those,
running.
He's someone that can play those deep minutes.
Does have an offload.
And especially off the bench.
His defence isn't horrible. Has an offload and, quite a strong ball runner. So it's something that they will need in different parts of the year.
I think we don't really sweep, but I think there's enough to give Brisbane a tick. And I suppose you give Titans a tick for what we're saying, that they're going to be who they are.
There'll be a different team that runs out this week. We're going to know a hell of a lot more next week after the second trial. But
yeah,
we still, realistically, you're not going to have any sort of clue of what's going to happen until 4, 5, 6 weeks into the competition, realistically, because you're going to have upsets in the first couple of weeks.
Oh, of course.
It's just how it goes.
Nature of the beast. The last game we'll just touch on, and I can't even find stats for it. If you can, well done. Is the Indigenous Maori All-Star game. You found it straight away.
Yeah.
What's it under?
It's under its own thing, under the All-Stars, where it says preseason challenge. You change that to All-Stars. It's on its own series. Anyway.
Yeah, who cares? You got it. As I said, not a lot of this sunk in anyway, but what were your takeaways from this? Because and even in context of what they're adding back in their team, what do you take away out of this?
I thought the Indigenous team probably should have run away with this game. They blew probably 3 or 4 opportunities. I think Cobbo was involved in 2 or 3 of them.
They dropped 2 over the line. I think it was
absolutely dropped the ball with the line open. The forward packs were dominated by the Maori team, but their rotation for their forward pack was horrible at different times of this game, and I don't think it let any of their forwards, apart from James Fisher-Harris, really have a proper impact on the game, because they were playing it for 10 minutes, taking them off, bringing on someone else, but then they'd sit on the sidelines for 10 or 15 minutes, come on, play 10 minutes, and it really sort of stunted the way that they were playing until the last 20 minutes, where they just sort of picked everyone and stuck and just, and they came home and got close at the back end of the game. Joseph Tapane just proved that he's one of the best forwards in the game. He was fantastic again. Late footwork, palm, offload. He was brilliant. James Fisher-Harris just did what he does every week, scares the hell out of people, runs over the top of people, hits them in defence. As a Shark supporter, I was a little disappointed to see Nico play half the game at fullback, to be honest, because that's not what the Sharks need or want. But when the game was on the line, he played in the front line. He played at 7, and he did a really good job. His passing game was quite good. Yeah.
No, he's in the other one, isn't he? Sorry.
He was in the other side. He swapped with Latrell. Latrell was playing 6 there for a big part of the game, which didn't help the Indigenous team either, because he's a catch and pass guy. He's not a ball player. When he has to think about things, he made quite a few mistakes if you go back and watch it, especially playing in the 6th position. And Cody Walker was a little disappointing too, in my opinion. But I think that was more because he had to sort of take a back seat and didn't get to control and tell everybody what he wanted when he wanted it.
As a Tigers supporter, I was very pleased with Brent Naden.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
Outstanding.
Absolutely.
And if he's going to end up on a centre, he probably played himself into a centre spot.
Yeah, but
there.
I think that's a little bit towards Nico as well. You have a look at the players that played in and around him. He made them
was Laurie and Naden down that side with Nico, and that was magic to watch. And nice touches for Laurie at times.
Yeah, there was.
I think when you combine those two, I think you throw them back in. They'll add some spark to the Tigers. And what Tigers have, which some of the teams don't have, will be pace on the back of that. Naden there.
Albert Kelly playing at 13 for parts of the game. He actually did quite good.
Who's he playing for now?
I think he's still up in the Titans system, but put a little size on, and he was actually running as a 13 there for a little while, which he did okay. Jermaine Hopgood was fantastic.
Yeah.
He is going to be a good pickup for Parramatta if he keeps up that form that he played in this game.
Well, he's going to get first
He
crack
was
too.
their best
He's there
forward.
now. He's going to get a month at it.
He was the best Indigenous forward by a mile. I thought Josh Kerr was quite good, apart from getting sent off there for 10 minutes, just because he didn't bend at the hips and make a tackle, hit a bloke with a shoulder in the face. But that happens, especially with your lazy front rowers. But not Whiten was fantastic. We mentioned him earlier.
Yeah.
I thought he hits like a truck in defence. He put a shot on Rapana. He put a shot on someone else as well, and just absolutely cleaned him up in defence.
It would just be like his simplified game is so great. Like when you take his kicking out, like just give him hit people, run hard and offload when you can.
Play
and
at
bust
13 where you don't
tackles.
have to kick the ball, don't have to make decisions.
He could be a great 13.
Run off the back of somebody
He's
else
such a
or a
great 13
centre.
or a great. Because they're now going to lose Tarpanay to 13, and not lose them, but anyway, we've raved about it we've ranted about it for a
couple of years now. Yeah, Latrell I thought was very disappointing, and Cody is better than Latrell, but it wasn't great. Cobbo scored 3 tries, which flattered his performance. As I said, made a lot of errors.
He's just got that one little moment where he beats 8 blokes and runs away and scores in him every week. So which you always want. You want that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Shaq Mitchell did a decent job as a front rower, but they were dominated by the pack from.
Yeah, so the Maoris.
As I said, I think he sort of cost his team a little bit with the constant interchange. Because there was points where Royce Hunt, Nakora, Jordan Ricky were actually starting to sort of make a stamp on the game, and then they got taken off. And then you sit down for 10 or 15 minutes, and then you got to start again. It's not like you can just come in and pick up where you left off after you've had 10 or 15 minutes sit on the bench. Preston Ricky was fantastic.
Yeah.
Penrith Junior apparently played New South Wales Cup for him last year, but he looked every bit of a first grader. Very similar to his brother, a little bit bigger, a little bit lighter, but taller, big frame, good footwork. He's definitely a back row. He may end up taking Luke Garner's spot if Luke Garner doesn't do the job.
Yeah.
But, he looked very impressive for me. Zach Docker-Clay scored a nice try with a kick off the first try of the game with a kick and a rebound off the post. Got involved at different points, but played more like a 9 than the Maori team did miss their halves. They didn't really have a halves combination that took control of the game at any time. It was more off the back of short passing out of dummy half and forwards sort of crashing over, scoring tries under the post or on an edge. But
just given how the teams ended up in the 35 withdrawals and everything, like it should have been a year they just postponed it. Surely it should have just been.
Still a really good game. It was entertaining, enthusiastic. They actually did beat the crap out of each other for large parts of the game. But yeah, they could have, but they're never going to,
No, well,
never going to postpone that.
Anything else to take away from that?
Jesse Arthurs, I thought was okay, considering he hasn't played a lot of footy in a couple of years.
He's one that's going to go back to Brisbane as well. That we just talking about their outside back stock. Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, no, not really. Leo Thompson did half a job.